Greetings and welcome to the Mount Rushmore podcast. My name is Jeff, and I'm joined as always by my good buddies Richard
Hello.
and Michael.
Howdy.
These gents debate and deliberate the most ubiquitous aspects of a variety of topics. And this time around, we're doing the Mount Rushmore of epic comeuppances. There have been some items in the news lately about persons or entities that have had their petards put out,
Hoisted
and they
upon them.
yeah, they have been hoisted upon said petards. Um, and all political stuff aside, because we never delve into our political opinions here on Rushmore. It's fucking awesome to see.
Yeah.
um, and maybe it'll start a trend. But I thought it'd be fun to discuss this and maybe celebrate this,
Mm,
and maybe the gentlemen think the same. So why don't we just jump into it? Who wants to go first? Michael.
I would love to go first.
Okay.
I love this category, by the way. I love as soon as um, I finally read the things that you wrote to me versus ignoring them for 2.5 weeks. I was like, yeah, this would be great. Oh, awesome! But comeuppance, what a great feeling to see uh, someone, just get theirs.
The karma wheel kind of comes
Ah, just love it. And
comes around. Yeah.
my first choice, Richard. I hope it. If not on your list, I hope you appreciate it. 2014, Brazil, host country
Oh, that's a good one.
of the
Oh.
World Cup, getting throttled 7-1 by Germany in the semifinal matches. Just if there was only a German word for enjoying someone's,
If only the Germans.
if only the Germans could have a very specific thing. Well, maybe there's a Portuguese version of Schadenfreude, but boy, what's amazing about it is Brazil has been. I mean, not that Germany hasn't been like a soccer powerhouse too in their own way over many decades, but like Brazil just in particular, just like very arrogant in their soccer Brazilianness. They trot out Blanca onto the field and he electrifies everybody, and then I think
Pele comes out to sell his Crestfield wax paper.
but just for them to get beaten so handedly and so quickly. I was reading that they scored 5 goals on him in like the first 6 minutes of play, and can imagine to have this entire country just get defeated by one other country in a non-violent way is just amazing to me, and to have it done in their own face, in their own home. Yeah,
What's
chef's
interesting
kiss.
is the amount to which the extent to which big global sporting events are kind of our new wars. They're like a way that one country will show its might against another, and so to have that happen, it almost seems like uh, uh, a battle has been won. Do you feel like anybody ever thinks they deserve it? Does anybody? I remember once during a kickball game that our team was kind of trouncing another, and we were getting to the point of kind of arrogance.
Sure.
And they should have mercy ruled and should have this, should have that. And at one point, the opposing team's coach said something like, "That's enough. That's enough." And then I remember turning to another player and going, "Yeah, we were dicks. We we should have."
There was always a feeling of, how do you play this game where you're clearly better than the other team, but you don't want to feel like you're
pandering or
pandering is a good
yeah,
word, because they're giving your best effort. You want your players to give their best effort, but then there's at some point when you just decide to change the strategy a little bit. Don't try to kick the ball hard. That might create more outs, but that doesn't mean that you're not trying to get on base or trying to do
yeah,
these things. And there was never a good solution.
yeah.
There was never something that was like, well, this is the way to go about it, because you ultimately would have someone on your own team who just wouldn't listen to anything that you'd suggest anyway, and then they'd be a dick, and you'd be like,
I
Yeah.
"Oh, God damn
said
it!"
I'm sorry, Michael.
Yes.
Well, to that end, I guess I wonders. I like my justice served in a way in which the person maybe has a moment of realization in which their
Mm.
hubris has the petard has been they have been hoisted, but I think most people really always believe themselves to be the underdog. Brazil still thinks it's the underdog, the victim. Maybe not. I don't know.
They
Richard, what do
also
you?
lost 3-0 to the Netherlands in the third place game afterwards. So
Oh,
it just got
geez.
heaped. It just got heaped on even more.
Wow, wow. Manfredi, what do you got?
All right, my first choice is Baltimore Orioles slugger Rafael Palmeiro,
Okay.
who got 3,000 base hits, which is a giant baseball milestone, and was something like, I could look this up real quick, like the 14th player in baseball history or something like that to get 500 home runs. And uh, actually, not even that. It was one of the, at the time, 5 players to get 3,000 hits and 500 home runs in his career. A surefire Hall of Famer, and then 10 days later tested positive for steroids,
No.
Oh, wow.
which was only made it more satisfying for some. Was when he was called up to Congress during the congressional hearings about steroids.
And couldn't fit through the door. Yeah.
His giant head got stuck. Yes. No, this happened earlier in the season before he before he got all the records and before he got suspended. This was back in March. He went to Congress and he's pointing his finger and let me start by telling you this. I have never used steroids, period. I don't know how to say it any more clearly than that. Never. And then like 6 months later, he's suspended for steroid use.
Wow.
And I could have selected any number of the steroid users, of the prominent steroid users in baseball of that era, whether it's your Barry Bonds or Mark McGwire in the same um, congressional hearing, repeating over and over, "I'm not here to talk about the past. I'm here to talk about the future." When asked if he had ever used steroids or anything to do with steroids, he just kept repeating that over and over and over again.
What did he
Um,
think that was going to accomplish?
well, somehow some lawyer had given him that phrase, obviously, and he was in his steroid-addled mind. I don't know what steroids do to your brain, but I don't think adding intelligence points to it is one of them. Um, Somehow he managed to just get that stuck and just think, "Oh, say it again." Do, do, do,
Yeah.
do, do. But the Rafael Palmeiro one wound up becoming sort of the gold standard for Schadenfreude
Mhm.
during the steroids era, because he was just very much like, I never did steroids and I don't approve of people who do it. And then like 6 months later, 10 days after his crowning achievement as a player, bing, gets popped for it.
Does that? I mean, they take it away. They take
Take away
away
what?
that record or that
Well, he's still got the record, but he's
tarnished.
tarnished. He's only ever the most votes he ever received in the Hall of Fame balloting was 11%,
Oh.
which is not even near close enough to get into the Hall of Fame. And
Mhm.
he would have been an absolute surefire 100% first ballot Hall of Famer without the steroid allegations.
Wow.
So it basically ruined his reputation.
Uh-huh.
And I think that people remember it with a little bit of glee
Mhm.
because of the way he was so righteous and angry about denying, versus Mark McGwire, who was just trying to get out of there as quickly as possible. And later came back and admitted, yeah, I did take steroids. Rafael Palmeiro to this day still is very insistent that he never did steroids, and there must have been a tainted supplement that he took from one of his
Uh,
teammates. And it's just like, dude, you got caught.
yeah.
Stone up to it. Everyone was doing 90% of baseball were doing steroids back in that era, the late 90s, early 2000s.
Uh-huh.
Just admit it, own it, and move on with your life.
Yeah.
But he's
So you're
just
saying
not capable of doing that.
it wasn't the offense itself; it was the indignance when it was thinking two wrongs will make this right, and I
I
can. my bluster. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's where baseball fans kind of looked at him and went, "We're glad you're getting what you deserve."
Yeah. Yeah. What? Okay. Winfield, what's your second one?
My second choice is the ultimate comeuppance that Randolph and Mortimer Duke suffer at the hands of Billy Ray
Oh.
Valentine and Lewis Winthrop III in the movie Trading Places for their ridiculous frozen concentrated orange juice
Yeah.
scheme that I'm still not quite sure how it works. I don't know
Yeah.
what I don't know what they were. They were like buying futures. This
Yeah.
is like I need you, Jeff, to explain it to me the same way that you like close your eyes and explain Bitcoin
Yeah.
and and crypto sometimes to me, because sometimes you go into like this fugue state where
Yeah.
you just know exactly. You've heard it in some ways. You've researched it enough. I
Yeah.
don't know what the scheme is. It's some seemingly like shorting the payment and buying it on futures,
Mhm.
and then they switched a report. A gorilla costume was involved, as well as some other kind of
I
racist
think
stuff.
Jamie Lee Curtis's boobs were involved at some point, which
Very much so.
which
Heavily
erased
involved. Yeah, heavy and heavily involved.
Um,
erased any of my understanding of
but
oranges. I
uh,
understood oranges. Yeah.
yeah, what I love about the end scene of the movie is besides not understanding exactly what was going on, but there's like this moment where there's just like both sides are like have their arms crossed and they're like smugly smiling. The Duke
Hmm.
brothers are have this huge smile because they think they've got this report. They think they have the upper hand, and the other two ding dongs know that they don't, or they have a fake one, and
Yeah.
they're they're just like, we're ruined. Turn the machines back on. Ah. They're trying to
Turn
screw
on
these two
those
guys' life.
machines.
Yeah, turn on those machines. Get it back rolling. It's just great. The one guy falls down like clutching his heart, and he's like, "Get up!"
Yeah,
Ah,
pulls the full Fred Sanford.
thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it when somebody falls down during a comeuppance. Wait, think, that's not a come down. It's a comeuppance. Which you fell down. It's my favorite. It's my favorite. Okay, all right. So that's a non-sports and a non-real one. Okay, that's cool. I mean, and a fictional one. Yeah. What do you got, Richard, for your second one?
All right, all mine are real ones, by the way, because
Okay,
I
okay.
wish I would have thought
It's a real movie. Yeah, yeah,
it is a real movie, and I
yeah.
believe it's based on actual events.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's
The
based off a true story.
the
So
great citrus shortage
of
1980.
1981.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, my second one is Bill Cosby.
Oh, wow.
When you put the pills in the thing, and then you do the thing. And I think the comeuppance factor here was that Bill Cosby held himself up. And he wasn't just a comedian. He wasn't just an actor. He was someone who held himself up as a moral shining light,
Yeah.
especially as he thought of himself as, I think, especially within the black community, as someone who is speaking the
Mhm.
truth.
Mhm.
And I think for a lot of people, it felt like that he would talk down to them about, uh, you know, crime and the way the kids are today and the way kids should be acting and just, you know, the whole package. And I think he even made a statement at some point, even talking about, kids wearing their clothes, their pants too low and having no manners, and they're all going to wind up in jail. Well, let's see who's the one who wound up in jail after all, Mr. Cosby.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was more than just just your standard fall from grace. I think the fact that he portrayed himself as this kind of uh, head of morality,
Mhm.
this sort of like a shining light for morality,
Mhm.
kind of made it so that whenever and all of that, the kind of sexual assault stuff had been talked about in the kind of hushed circles for a long time, but when it really came out publicly, I think it made a lot of people go, "Oh, look, a hypocrite.
Yeah.
He's not just a sexual assaulted, a rapist or anything like that, he's a hypocrite.
Mm-hmm.
And for a lot of people, I hate to say it, that's just as bad.
Mm-hmm.
I think the person really rubbing their hands with glee was Bart Simpson,
Sure.
and he certainly won uh, the parental figure versus the
Yeah.
uh, don't have a cowman, bad influence kid from. I recall that being such a heavily like, uh, you know, what this person is a shining example of a great family on their sitcom, and this person is a shining example of such a poor family, not uh, financially, but just like a poorly run family with no family values, and one's outlasted the other. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I think anyone who's involved with any sitcom that ran on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. on a network other than NBC during the 80s probably rubbed their hands with glee, because that's the bastard that got their show canceled after like 5 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, right? I mean, basically, you had no chance if you had a TV show that was going up against the Cosby Show. So I imagine that there are tons of ex sitcom stars who just slept a little bit easier after all of this came out.
Who was it? I think Eddie Murphy was talking about Cosby, criticizing him because of his use of profanity,
Mm-hmm.
and Murphy Cosby was Murphy's hero, or Pryor was too, but I think like a hero of his. And so to have that kind of critique, and then to see that this person is clearly not beyond reproach, in that case also it's kind of a really not bittersweet, but for many people, the the for I think I've heard in regards to that discussion, like what do we do with these monsters who become our Supreme Court justices or presidents or
Right.
film studio heads or Oscar winners or uh, heads, theological leaders and things like that. And what do we do with the light that they shined so brightly that guided so many people? Then we realize how fractured that light was, and how now whatever guidance we've gotten seems really kind of uh, sullied by that. Cosby was such a accepted so broadly in white America across color lines and things like that from a representation standpoint, there's so many people who looked up to him as somebody who can cut through the conversation of race and cut through all these, cross so many barriers. Let's talk about crossing over. And then to have him fall so hard and then get acquitted, he's not in jail anymore, is he?
No, no, no. But he did have to spend enough time in jail that I
Yeah.
at least can feel like some small level, if not an
Yeah.
appropriate level, of justice was served.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, halftime is served,
Oh,
and
it's a dish best served cold, I
it's
believe.
okay. All right. Here's some freezing cold halftime for you. And well, the cold, nothing's cold out on the Mount Rushmore podcast.com website. There's so many
Oh,
hot
we got our hot takes. Yeah.
hot takes. Hot takes, spam cakes out there. Go out there
Ooh.
to. There's no way you can catch any kind of virus from the Mount Rushmore podcast site.
We're catching all the
We're
viruses for
catching all
you.
of them for you and containing them within our URL.
It's
Download.
like it's like a Ghostbusters containment unit for
Yeah,
spam.
yeah, it totally is. Um, yeah, don't cross the streams, and don't miss out on all you can go seek out and get. But then also go to the podcast listener thingy of your choice and download, rate, and review past episodes. We would love it. Even if you were to if you became so inspired to think of a topic, to submit that topic to us, because we would love to hear your suggestions. Past suggestors have become uh, recording people, we guests on the podcast, and it was a lot of fun. So we'd love to get you on this podcast too. You don't have to, but it'd be fun. And Winfield's going to let us know his third one.
I got 3 words for you. Big bad wolf. Now let me tell you about this guy. This guy just goes around eating whoever he wants, whenever he wants, at any time. He doesn't care what kind of house you live in.
Nope.
I don't know, Jeff. You moved into a house recently.
Straw.
Is your house made out of straw? Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I
You
got
started
bad news. I got bad news for you. Either
I hear puffing, but is there huffing? Do I also hear huffing? I know. There's a airplane glue addict around here somewhere.
I love the story of the big bad wolf. It's one of the strange ones that my son also has such an affinity towards. He loves it in all forms, whether it's a Merry Melodies or Silly Symphonies version, or if it's like I don't know. There's some really creepy versions of the Big Bad Wolf and the Three Little Pigs, where this wolf gets absolutely demolished at the end in some of these. You know, sometimes he goes down a chimney and he burns his bottom and he runs away yelping and scraping his ass along the ground. It's fun. Sometimes he goes into like a boiling pot of turpentine and he gets boiled alive and eaten by the pig at the end.
Wow.
Either way, this wolf had it coming the entire time, knocking people's houses down, made out of sticks, made out of straw. Good riddance.
Do you feel like it's the same wolf in Little Red Riding Hood? Like it's the same guy?
Well,
no, he got hacked open by a huntsman.
Yeah, and then they pulled the grandma out sometimes.
The woodsman, yeah.
The woodsman,
yeah.
No, I bet they know each other though. I bet that they're like fine with like swapping names.
Yeah,
it's like on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. I'll be the one that goes after the pig, and Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you go after Grandma in Little Red Riding Hood, and then Sunday we're gonna rest.
Yeah,
it's the Lord's Day.
Or they
Very
fill
religious.
In for each other they fill in for each other on like day when another one needs like a vacation day.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, there's a lot of PTO.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the wolf calendar is,
Were the pigs assholes though? Like, didn't the pigs kind of like sing and dance and say, "Who's afraid? Who cares?" Like,
in some versions, yes. There was a neglect of their duties to build a proper house, or to build one to make one sturdy enough. Definitely, there is a morality involved of doing something the right way, and if you don't, the big bad wolf is going to come get you. But I don't know if they were necessarily inviting it. Sure. Hey, I mean, who are we to say what one should make their house out of?
Yeah.
Maybe, if you're living in a dangerous environment, maybe build a little bit stronger next time. I get that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Boy, I'm really hedging my big bad wolf. Maybe he wasn't all right to eat a couple of pigs.
Like you haven't eaten some pigs in your day, Michael.
It's true.
I've seen you eat pepperoni pizza.
But I haven't like knocked down their house to get to them.
Yeah. I feel like his thing was he just assumed he, like the hare from The Tortoise and the Hare. He assumed, I got this. I can use my natural abilities to huff and puff and blow the house down. I'm not even going to worry about it. But he was wrong. He had to do more. Yeah. All right, Manfredi.
Speaking of huffing and puffing, Jim Baker.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Of Jim and Tammy Faye Baker fame.
Yeah.
Disgraced televangelist, because could there be any other kind?
There's very few graced televangelists.
It's Billy Graham, and that's about it.
That God comes down and goes, "He's right. I said that. Give him your money. He gives it to me."
So Jim Baker, for those of you too young to remember, was the head of the PTL, Praise the Lord Club, which would run on TV stations throughout the country, and was essentially a Ponzi scheme. It was a way for Jim Baker himself to make money by taking in donations. I don't believe he was one of the. I don't believe that at any point he ever said he was going to be called home if he
Mm.
didn't receive a certain amount of cash. I think that was Oral Roberts, if I
Oh wow.
remember correctly. But Jim Baker, it was like a nightly talk show that was all focused around, in theory, Christianity and religion. But more importantly, it was focused around Jim and Tammy Faye Baker and trying to get as much money from your grandmother as
Yeah.
possible. Eventually, he was accused of sexual misconduct by a church secretary. Um, and then that led to allegations of misuse of ministry funds. And he wound up serving 5 years in jail for that. The last time he's now back into the public light. He has attempted to restart his TV televangelism career. He has been promoting that the end days are coming,
Uh,
and that when the end days come, you'll need to make sure that you're prepared for it. So he's got all of the survivalist, like food, MREs,
Oh
supplies
no.
that he's been selling to his audience.
these guys are just
It's like so this is an example of someone who got his comeuppance and just didn't learn the lesson.
yeah.
He got in trouble a couple of years ago for selling colloid silver supplements as a cure for COVID, and wound
Jeez.
up getting sued by various attorneys general in different states for that. So it's just the guy doesn't get it. You think if anyone would have learned his lesson, it would be Jim Baker.
Mhm.
Tammy Faye Baker appeared to have learned her lesson, or at least publicly did, and became this beloved gay icon somehow in a way that I'm still not 100% sure how that actually happened. But Jim Baker learned no lessons, changed none of his mo, and is just back doing the same shit that he did before.
True American.
Wow.
God bless America.
Do you think okay, so I feel like people like a comeback. They like
Hmm.
to see somebody like Martha Stewart, um, insider trading, and also, you know, this im, unapproachable icon of perfection, and there
Right.
was, I think, not that that was a crime to sell that idea to the world, but it just seemed like she deserved it. Her fall seemed like a little bit of a comeuppance, I think.
I
Um,
think it did to some extent. Here's where I will differ with you on this.
okay,
I feel like that Martha Stewart, around the time when the insider trading thing happened, people were really already starting to get sick of her shit,
yeah,
the perfectionist thing. And it's almost like being convicted of insider trading and having to go to a minimum security prison wound up making her seem less perfect.
oh, it's interesting.
Hmm.
You mean
So
and more likable, maybe?
and maybe more likable. The other prong of this was, of course, her friendship with Snoop Dogg.
Yeah, yeah,
But I think you combine the two of them, and suddenly she's not this kind of prim, perfect figure on television and magazines. She seems more like a normal person, has foibles and makes mistakes and
hmm,
goes to jail just like your Uncle Jimmy did. You know,
yeah. Well, wait.
not your Uncle Jimmy. I
Jeez.
mean, a generic Uncle Jimmy.
Oh, I thought you said Jimmy Stewart went to jail.
Oh,
I was
Uncle
like,
Jimmy.
that
Oh,
was
you don't.
only
That's the
in the
last one on my list of comeuppance. By the way, I should get into that. It's my
that
number
was
four, Jimmy
that was
Stewart.
in my "It's a Wonderful Life" fan fiction where Mr. Potter is you're gonna
hauled
go to
off.
jail.
Hauled off. The townspeople don't actually raise enough money, and he's hauled off in chains at the end of the movie.
That's hilarious. Uh, okay. Winfield, what's the last one? And are you arrogantly going to predict that you are going to win this, Michael Winfield? Is that what you're saying? That you
I
think?
stand here on Mount Pius, looking down upon
Oh
all the
boy.
little people.
I think it's going to be a big comeuppance here.
Uh, uh-oh.
You?
Um, I have another fictional one because I don't know. My head was I wasn't thinking of real world comeuppances. I didn't want to think about the the real horrible people that do these things, like the Alex Joneses, as you mentioned.
Leave that to me. Is what
Yeah,
you're thinking. Yeah,
let Richard swim
that's my wheelhouse.
in that drivel. Uh, my final choice is the constant repetition of comeuppances that happen to Mr. Biff Tannen throughout the
Oh
Back
wow.
to the Future
Oh,
series of
fun.
movies, where it doesn't matter what what life he lives, what age of the world he lives in. At some point, he's gonna get his.
Yeah.
He's the biggest, awfulest bully. He gets it from a scrawny little um, not Marty McFly. Who's the other one?
George.
George McFly. Thank you. He gets it from George. He gets it from Marty. He gets it from Marty again. Just in any time, no matter how old.
Descendants get it from Marty.
And it's great because in each version of him, he's like even more disgusting. Like at first, he starts out like your average bully, just this big kind of strong galoot who gets beat up by the kind of wimpy sci-fi nerd. And as a wimpy sci-fi nerd, I love it. I can see myself in it. Then he turns into this Donald Trump like character where he gains all this power and fame and glory, and he still gets taken out by some kid with a flying car, and then he gets turned into like this mid 1800s gunfighter who's just gross and disgusting, and even he gets covered in horseshit. And like each time, it's just chef's kiss. More and more beautiful to see like this guy who has this inkling of power, and it's like it's this bully power. That's I think the bully is such a easily root againstable type person. Nobody likes the bully except the bully, and maybe even the only people that pretend to like the bully are like the bully's toadies, and even they will quickly abandon that person at a moment's notice and probably revel in their own comeuppance. But I don't know. I think he, as a character going through time or existing in different times and always having like this similar kind of horrible archetype of being this bully that gets his, is just it's just great.
Yeah, that's fun to think it's almost Sisyphean, or it's his fate is to continually, like there's nothing he could do to alter that fate. It's all pre-written and inevitable. That's a fun choice. I have to say that due to somebody I did not like loving the Back to the Future franchise, I kind of turned away from it. And so I have to. It's not the movie's fault. So I got to revisit those. And that's funny. That actor too. I forget the actor.
Tom Wilson. Thomas Wilson.
Yeah, he's not Shakespeare. I mean, wait, Shakespeare's a writer, not. Well, I guess he was an actor. He's not like Jeremy Irons, but he played that part pretty pretty well.
And by all accounts, a super guy, as most people who play villains are.
Oh yeah, decent dude. Yeah, that's funny. Okay, Richard Manfredi, what's the final?
All right, so you mentioned Alex Jones.
Yeah,
and I think you mentioned him at the start. I know that his name came up when we were first discussing doing this topic as kind of a raison d'être to be doing this in the first place. So I take a nap this afternoon after getting back from a trip to the Long Beach Aquarium. And as I'm getting literally as I'm like talking to my wife about the topics that we're doing for this week and my choices, and we get to the Mount Rushmore of comeuppance, her immediate thought was, she immediately bursts out with, "Oh, you mean like Trump's Mar-a-Lago getting raided today?"
What?
And I went, "What? Excuse me?" And so I haven't had a lot of time to digest this. But yes, as we are recording this on Tuesday or on Monday, Monday, August 8th.
You'll get there.
I will eventually get there. As we are recording this on Monday, August 8th, 2022. It's within a few hours of ago. Yes, Trump has had Mar-a-Lago raided, has had his safe gone through and rifled through looking for possible secure documents that should have been kept somewhere other than his safe in Mar-a-Lago. And I'm just fascinated by we are currently in the comeuppance of Donald Trump. And I hope it doesn't stop for a long, long time.
We've been promised that for like
I know.
3 years.
I know, but it feels like it's actually like happening. Like today made me feel like, oh, they're actually serving warrants and they're actually raiding his estate. They're actually serious about this. There's someone out there who might actually do something.
Yeah. I just that would be such a delight. That would be such a delight. And then I always wonder, would that mean just would it be weaponized martyrdom for him? Would somehow or is there underwear so dirty that could be shown to his followers that they would even blanch at? Like who these people have excused the most horrid behavior from this person.
Yeah.
What could ever be revealed?
The one thing that I read earlier, the only way really to stop it is if he is convicted of removing these like top secret documents. One of the fines or one of the punishments is they can't hold public office again. And I think ultimately that's what you're looking forward to. You're looking for like he's going to continue like hucksters. He's going to continue to bilk stupid people out of their money, and he may still stay rich doing it and still maintain some aspect of political power in that realm until he can't be in office anymore, like till it's the penalty, if it is ever applied, but who knows, that he removed these documents. um, that's part of the legal code that this person couldn't run for or hold any public office, which
Yeah.
um, I think that's the ultimate thing to hope for. Is all this other stuff, he can go back to being a super gross C-list celebrity who lives in a weird place in Florida and
Are you
sees
talking
weird
about Jeff
things.
or Trump?
Yeah.
Hold on a second.
I'm listening. I know I don't.
But I think that's the ultimate hope. But I feel very similar to you, Jeff. I remember a bunch of years ago when Trump was first in office and he fired James Comey. And I thought, oh, this is the end. He's been in
Oh yeah.
office for 3 months and this investigation is gone. And he fired, and then nothing happened. And then every time it feels like this guy just slips through the fingers of law and common sense and whatever. And, not that he got pretty close to winning, so to speak, a couple of years ago now.
Sure.
It wasn't like a landslide. It wasn't like 70% of Americans rejected him. It was like 53% to 47%. I mean, it's a 6% difference, but it's still pretty close. And I don't know. I hate to be a naysayer, but I'm vibing with you, Jeff. Like it feels really cool.
Yeah.
Man, I love watching this movie.
Yeah.
But I want to see it to the end and not just like walk out before, I see the leprechaun pogo stick the guy to death.
I've realized in the process of this conversation that this puts me in an awkward situation where I'm wishing for the continued good health of Donald Trump. Because I want to see him live long enough to get his comeuppance. Like the last thing I want is for him to die and then everyone to go, oh, well, he's dead. Forget it. We don't need to continue looking into his finances and his handling of secure documents and all of this stuff. I want him to live a good long time so all of these investigations can reach their conclusion.
Yeah. Like I don't know how this guy could have any more embarrassing stuff revealed, like anything that would I just don't know how, but and I think what I realized is, unlike in the movies where you kill the lead vampire and all the other vampires die, that doesn't help. That doesn't happen with these people. DeSantis just grows stronger, when Trump dies or whatever. So yeah, it would just be, I
Like
guess.
you keep waiting for like Trump head stuck in toilet zoo at toilet.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, that could be good.
Yeah.
What else you got, And
yeah. Okay. All right. Well, cool. I guess what I think is interesting about it is my opinion on it. Whenever I see a meme of Josh Hawley running like a chicken and all the
Mm.
liberals go ha 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 ha, that doesn't exist in Fox News land. They don't see that meme. They don't care. That doesn't hurt them. They don't. We see this, this kind of come up in somewhat, and it just doesn't. It just doesn't go over into their world. Sadly, that's depressing for me. Sorry, this became a very political topic, and I apologize.
Oh, mostly my fault. Mostly my
Oh,
fault.
okay, yeah, yeah.
So
Well,
blame me. So blame me.
Biff Tannen, right? Big Bad
Yeah.
Wolf. Yeah, all this political. Okay, well, let's do some picking. And I was educated about Brazil and Rafael Palmeiro. That was a sports thing, and I didn't see that coming from you guys, and I really appreciate being educated. The ones that felt kind of visceral to me are the Kaz,
Yeah.
for sure, and the Trading Places brought back a lot of fun memories on that. So
That was a great one,
those are the
Michael.
top four.
Well done.
And boobies. Jamie Lee Curtis boobies. Okay. This has been the Mount Rushmore of Jamie Lee Curtis boobies. I'm as always Jeff.
I'm Richard.
I'm Michael.
Sorry, I'm trying to be more woke, bro, and not.
Look, you can be a woke bro as much as you want, but when we're talking about Jamie Lee Curtis's boobies, I think all bets are
Yes.
off.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm going to get a refill of water. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to do the same thing, so I'll be right back as
Check
well.
on my dog. Oh my dude. That's good stuff.
That's good stuff. Boy, honestly, watching this kid start to swim is, God, it's so cool. It's really cool.
I bet. I bet he's just wiggling his arms and legs around and laughing. And is it hard for him? Is it easy? Is he afraid of the water at all?
It's all these little things. It's you're too far away. He didn't want to get his head underwater
Mm.
for the longest time. Now
Mm.
this kid is jumping off the side of the pool, going all the way underwater. He's like learned that it's not scary, and he would stand on the side at first, and like he'd want to jump but he couldn't. He'd want to jump but he couldn't, and he'd start to stamp his foot down because he'd be like no, and like the teacher would be like, all it is he wants to do it but he's scared to do it. So these two things are conflicting.
Hmm. Wow, that's really.
But he's got a great teacher. It's been really super. He has 3 lessons to go. It's taken. We're doing like these midweek practice sessions, swimming things too. So we've been over at my dad's a lot.
Mhm.
But it's just been really really cool. Honestly, just so cool, and he'll be able to swim.
That's so great.
It's like fucking great. Yes.
I think I was 9 years old. I was always afraid of the deep end of the pool,
Mm.
and I went to like a YMCA camp, and there was one. It was like at the end of the summer. All of a sudden, we weren't swimming in the shallow pool. All the kids had to line up and just go jump into the deep end of the pool, and I had no choice. And it was like the scariest thing. I was just standing in line, accepting my fate. Like, oh, I guess I'm gonna die in a minute or whatever in line. I literally just thought I was gonna die from jumping in the pool, and I finally did, and it was okay. I
I
swam
had
over to the side.
Yeah, I didn't learn to swim till I was 9 or 10 as well. I had a
Mhm.
friend that like had almost drowned me in his pool by like horsing around and holding me underwater and all
Oh
this different
God.
stuff. And I remember the feeling that I had was I remember feeling so much older than all the other kids. Like I was next to like 6 year olds and I was like, or 5 and 6 year olds, and I was like 9 or 10.
Uh-huh.
And I remember just feeling so ashamed and embarrassed
Oh,
to
when you
be
were
learning
learning.
to swim so
Oh,
late or whatever. But
yeah, yeah. Have you guys watched the Sandman
Yeah, we're
series?
watching it right now. We're on episode 3 tonight.
Uh-huh.
We watched the first 2 episodes.
yeah, we watched the first three and then have had a busy weekend, but it's been great.
I will refuse to watch the diner episode.
Mm.
I'm opting out of that one. Sarah can watch it and let me know how it was.
Should I read the series first if I ever want to enjoy the series?
No,
No, I
it's
don't think
different. I
so.
mean, it's all the beats are there.
Okay.
It's good. The guy is good as Dream, especially. I'm kind of surprised. They change a few things. They make mm,
They
one of
combine a
the
few things.
they make one of the villains a bit more center at the beginning of the story, more
Mhm.
integral to the things that doesn't happen that way quite in the book, but it's an adaptation. They're going to be
Mhm.
changes,
Mhm. All right.
but the book's good on its own, and so far this series has been good too. I'm very
All right.
surprised.
All right.
All right, whenever you're ready, Jeff.
Oh,
Sports calls.
sports calls. Greetings and welcome to the Mount Rushmore podcast. This is Jeff and Michael. Are you on the line?
I'm here.
Okay.
Mike from NoHo.
All right, Mike from Oho, a long-time listener, first-time caller. All right, okay. Whoa, hey, your operator says we got Richard on the line. Richard, you there?
Yeah,
Richard?
is this? Yeah, I can you
Yeah,
hear me?
we hear you just fine. You don't need to shout. Yeah, we got you on the line, Richard.
Okay, can I turn? Do I turn off my
You can
my
turn down
radio? Or
you can turn
okay,
down if you want to. So today's topic, you guys are calling in because today's topic is the Mount Rushmore of sports calls. We're gonna have you guys debate and deliberate the most ubiquitous sports calls. So, Winfield, you started last week with our comeuppance topic. Manfredi, you're gonna start.
all right. I think it's only appropriate to begin to remember the recent passing of the late great Vin Scully by talking about his call of Kirk Gibson's home run in the 1988 World Series.
Also number one on my list.
Okay.
Has to be Vin Scully, the greatest baseball announcer of all time, perhaps the greatest sports announcer of all time, and his crowning achievement maybe is his call of Kirk Gibson's game-winning home run in the 1988 World Series. Perfect in its understatement, which is a Vin Scully trademark. Just the fact that Gibson hits the home run and she is out of here, and then he just shuts up for like a minute and just lets the pictures and the sound of the crowd tell the entire story. Because that's what you need at the moment. You don't need there's so many times that I think play-by-play announcers feel like they need to make themselves a part of the moment.
Mhm.
And Scully's greatness was recognizing when there are moments that are that big, you don't need to say anything. It's all happening in front of you, out in front of the viewers. There's no need to say anything else. And that was the genius of Vin Scully. But if you go back, it's not just the call of the home run, it's the call of the entire at bat. And the way he kind of builds up to the moment of the 3-2 count and the game being on the line. Because Kirk Gibson, for people who don't know, was the MVP of the 88 of the 1988 NL, really, and he was the best player on the Dodgers, and got hurt in the previous series, and no one thought he was going to be able to play. And in the ninth inning, with them down, he comes up with 2 outs and a runner on, and they're down by a run, and he hobbles up to the plate on 2 bad knees. And Vin Scully, just the way that he was able to build on the improbability of just the moment of Kirk Gibson coming up, and then the fact that Gibson actually hits a home run, Vin Scully just is as integral to it as the actual home run itself.
Yeah, I think the things that are all captured in it are such a screenwriter's dream of a situation with the hobbled player batting against like the best closer in baseball at the time. It was Dennis Eckersley, is that right?
Yes.
For the A's. And I think he's just so poetic in the way that I don't know if he had it written down, but he says, like, in a season that has been so improbable, the impossible happened. And it's just the rhyming, not the rhyming, but
the cadence.
The cadence of the way that's said. Like, I don't even think, like, he couldn't have scripted, he couldn't have written down if a ninth inning home run comes up by the guy that shouldn't even be in the game, shouldn't be at bat. It's down till a last strike. He's fouled off all these other pitches. He's swinging wildly at anything that kind of comes close to the plate. And he just, it's imagine living through to that point, maybe, 40 years of calling baseball games and to see something like this in the biggest stage and to be able to capture it perfectly. And he's done it so many times in different venues, whether it was like the Hank Aaron breaking Babe Ruth's home run record, and that thing plays out for a long time in a similar fashion where he lets the moment play, and nobody does that. But I don't know, the Kirk Gibson home run one is just perfect.
Well, I find that fascinating. Somebody else had to explain that to me. I turned to a coworker and said, well, what made Vin Scully so great? And that was exactly what they pointed out, his underplaying, and in a medium that overplays. Television is about selling the moment all the time. And I can also see too, like, had you come from radio, I don't know if did he start in radio?
Oh,
Where you
sure.
had,
Back in the 40s. Yeah, he
yeah.
started before there was really almost television on baseball
Mm-hmm.
on television.
Yeah. To have to learn that you don't need to paint the pictures, they're already there on the set. Whereas in radio, you have to, right? So that's fascinating. That's fascinating. For me, that's amazing, amazing. And right, Michael, that the poetry of that, impossible, improbable, yeah, implausible.
And I think Vin Scully was a national figure, but I think that he meant so much to the city of Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's hard to sort of overstate what hearing Vin Scully on a summer night calling a game, whether you're listening on the radio in your car or he was calling the game on television. I know for me, we would get Dodger games up where I grew up, a little bit north of Los Angeles. But we would also, when I would come down to visit my grandmother in El Monte over the summer, she just had Dodger games on. They're just on in the background. And she would watch it, and then she wouldn't watch it, and they'd be on and it'd be off. But there would be, kind of her attention to it would be on and off. But the game was always on. And so Vin Scully just became this backdrop to summer in Los
Mm-hmm.
Angeles for me. And I'm sure,
Yeah.
Michael, you growing up in Los Angeles, you can probably speak even more personally about that, but I know so many people who feel the same way.
Yeah, I mean, I was over at my dad's this weekend and we were talking about it, and he's talking, he's been here since the 50s. He moved over from England in the mid 50s, and he was just he was just, he told me, he's like, it's not like there were baseball games on TV every day the way there are now. You can watch every baseball, in theory, you could watch just about any baseball game you wanted. Like, you got to watch baseball maybe once a week. It might have been on Sundays. Otherwise, you just listened to Vin Scully and you listened to the Dodgers, and it was Vin Scully, and I can't remember the name of his.
Don Drysdale.
No, it was before it was Don Drysdale. It's whoever he came up with that was his co-broadcaster for a long time. But these were just the people that you heard on the radio all the time. That's all you'd listen to. And, with in my later years, like kind of getting back into the Dodgers and stuff and watching games, like so many memories are just of his voice, either falling asleep on the couch on a Sunday watching a game, or a game would always be on at a various kickball bar, and if you had a chance to hear it over the the din of all the people talking, it would be great. And I remember there's this great 4 home run ninth inning game that he called, where they hit 4 home runs in a row to tie it up in the bottom of the ninth, and then they Nomar Garciaparra hit another home run to win it in like extra innings, and like just all these things. That what's nice to see is that there is always, even after probably calling thousands and thousands of games, there is always like a moment of surprise and unbelievability with the way that he reacted to things. Like he'd never seen a baseball game ever, and sometimes the way that the calls sprang out. And it's just what makes him so good, and what makes a good broadcaster and a good sports call just so it paints the picture, it sells the excitement of the moment.
All right. So I guess that would be Mike with his second choice.
So my second choice is the Howard Cosell call of "Down goes Frazier, down goes Frazier."
Sure.
The 1973 boxing match between Joe Frazier and George Foreman, where George Foreman just absolutely beat the tar out of Frazier. He knocked him out in the second round after knocking him down like 6 times within the match, and he just clobbered this dude. And just the way that Cosell, with his like kind of weird, strange, nasally voice, captures that moment. It's almost like watching, I don't know, you think of like Godzilla being knocked down, or just like a Titan, some sort of huge, prehistoric animal just getting defeated, and like the improbability of it. Even George Frazier was the champion at the time, and I don't know, George Foreman I think was in his absolute prime and just a beast of a boxer. But the "Down goes Frazier" call is just one of those things that's kind of just echoed through the years. It's become so iconic. Feels like it can be applied to anything, and the reference would stand.
An episode of Cheers.
Did it happen? Did it happen on?
No,
an episode?
No.
But you could see it. You could see if I don't know, Norm and whoever, Norm and Cliff Clavin were fighting about something, and one of them falls. You could hear it being nasally, uttered out of the mouth of Cliff Clavin or something too.
Yeah, I mean, no other sport than boxing has such like this kind of battle imagery in it.
Right.
So, yeah. Manfredi, what's yours?
All right. My second choice is the 1980 Miracle on Ice game, and the call in the closing minutes by Al Michaels. Mm-hmm. Of course, the unforgettable "Do you believe in miracles? Yes" call, which I had a chance. I've read Al Michaels' autobiography, which is, if you're interested in sports, if you're interested in sports broadcasting, I can't recommend it highly enough. It's a great read. Someone who has been involved in so many amazing sports calls over his years, and just kind of him talking about like breaking them down and what was going on in his head when he was making them. And the whole deal about the Miracle on Ice game was that he the only reason he was calling hockey in the 1980 Winter Olympics was because no one at ABC Sports had ever called hockey before. And he had the experience of having called one game, the gold medal game, I believe, in the 1972 Winter Olympics in Sapporo, Japan. So that one game was more experience than anyone else at ABC had. He actually knew the sport, was a fan of it, so they figured he could actually explain what the offside rule is, and all of the icing and all the little nuances. And so that's the whole reason he was doing ice hockey. And it was kind of seen as this sort of, it wasn't seen as one of the big assignments to get in the Winter Olympics. You wanted to get ice skating or figure skate or speed skating or skiing. Those are the plum assignments that you might get. And ice hockey was seen as kind of a secondary assignment. Especially because no one thought the U.S. team was going to do anything other than maybe win a game or two.
Yeah.
But certainly not come close to getting any medal at all. And in the book, he talks about, and he's talked about this because God knows he's been asked about this. I don't know that anyone has ever been asked about a call of a sporting event more than Al Michaels has been asked about the Miracle on Ice call. I'm sure that he must, on some level, get absolutely sick of it. But in the interviews that I've seen with him, he's talked about how people will ask him, hey, so did you have the do you believe in miracles thing planned out? He said, absolutely not. He didn't want to plan anything out. He never does. He just wants to say whatever comes to his head at that moment and make it as natural and authentic as possible. And as the seconds were ticking down and he's still trying to call the game, and ice hockey, trying to call an ice hockey game is different than any other sport because it's so fast paced that you're spending so much of your time just going, Eruzione over to Brown back to, just kind of keep doing the housekeeping of calling the game. But as he's doing that, in his head, he's thinking about, oh my God, they're actually going to do this. This team of U.S. college kids are going to be the best hockey team ever assembled. It's miraculous. And so for some reason, miraculous stuck in his head. And as the seconds ticked down and he got to the last few seconds and it was obvious they were going to win, he just kind of took the idea of it being miraculous and spun it into a question and got one of the most iconic calls in sports history out of it.
Wow. That's pretty cool. Do you think from an Olympic standpoint, he might have said, McDonald's is going to have to give away a lot of French fries for this one?
That would have been good product placement if he had done that. I'm sure if it was today, McDonald's would already have been all over it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good one. That is a good one. And I wonder, had that call not been so amazing, this is dumb, but would the movie have happened?
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
It's an example of where the famous call and the fact that it was so well done and so iconic is so tied up with the event that you can't extricate one from the other.
Yeah.
Do you believe in hockey games? I just watched one.
Or if you would have gone, holy shit, they won! That would have been iconic for a different reason.
Were they really? The kids were in college?
Yeah, it was all a bunch of college kids.
Oh,
they were all like college, basically a college all-star team up against this.
Literally
the best hockey team in the world that had just gone out and beat the NHL all-star team 10-3 earlier in the year.
Wow. That's just crazy to think. Those kids are going to go back to Western Civ.
Right. They're gonna go back to Minnesota and be
yeah,
exactly,
trying to hook up, getting rejected. Don't you know? Okay. Hook up. You can hook up with the past episodes of Mount Rushmore podcast. Download, rate, and review past episodes. 5 stars is what it costs. Unless you don't give us 5 stars, you can't play them. Your podcast player won't work. So you got to give 5 stars in order to be able to play past episodes. And do that. That'd be great. And now, Michael Winfield's going to give us his third, I think.
My third.
Yeah.
just a bit outside by Harry Doyle from the film Major League is played by Bob Uecker in one of those
Nice.
strange instances where, Richard, maybe you can correct me. Did Bob Uecker, was he already a play-by-play guy by the time that he got that role, or
Oh,
did that
sure.
role lead him to? I wasn't sure because I know he did it for the Brewers, or has always done it for the Brewers or for whatever, but I mostly remember him as, Bob Uecker from Mr. Belvedere. So I wasn't sure when the paths crossed with him.
Oh, sure. I think he had been the Brewers radio play-by-play guy since like the 70s.
Oh, okay. Well, Bob Uecker's call for a pitch by the character Ricky Vaughn, aka the Wild Thing, is one of another that has been mocked and repeated and probably referenced on Sports Center infinity times since it's happened in 1989 as just this perfect. What I like about the call, and obviously it's a make believe from a movie sort of thing, is that it's done with such flippancy that this downtrodden team, it's so unexpected, or it's so not surprising that this guy's can't hit the strike zone for for hitting the side of a barn or whatever that expression is. But it takes great comedic timing and great writing and great little things to come up with something that is probably mentioned in a baseball game legitimately if you just miss the strike zone, but for a ball to sail 25 feet above a player's head or behind his back, whichever way it went, and to have it delivered with the same sort of just like the same sort of panache is just great.
Do you think the fact? Wait, Uecker was one of the losingest guys in sports or something like that. Is that who he was? Wait, who was Bob? I would just see the guy in talk shows on like Carson and.
Oh yeah, he was. His shtick was that he would claim to be the worst baseball player who ever played in the major leagues. Yeah.
Okay.
That was his whole like self-deprecating sort of running joke.
Yeah. Do you think it added that was him saying it? Do you think, or I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe, but I think it was more that it was just a beloved dad figure.
Yeah.
Bob Uecker.
Yeah.
The Mr. Belvedere dad talking about like 2 goddamn hits.
Yeah.
You can say that on the air. Nobody's listening anyway.
Cool. That's a fun one. Okay. All right. Richard.
All right. My third choice is Joe Starkey and his call of the play. A play so well known that you only need to call it by the play in the big game between Cal and Stanford in 1982, where Cal completes a miracle comeback on a kick return with about 8 laterals and weaving their way through the Stanford band, which had made their way on the field prematurely and completely messed up the whole ending of the game.
Oh, wow.
And Joe Starkey's call, it's the whole play.
The football's in the tuba.
Yes.
Right.
That's exactly what he said. It's the whole play itself is so even more than like a Kirk Gibson home run, because that's within the realm of things that you see. Injured guy comes off the bench and hits a home run. Improbable? Absolutely. Impossible? No, sort of. But you've seen a home run get hit before. You've never seen 8 laterals at the end of a kickoff return with the opposing team's band coming onto the field halfway during the play and stopping their team from being able to tackle the runner, and then having a tuba player get trucked in the end zone by the guy scoring the touchdown. And Joe Starkey, just his call matches the game, the play so well, because it starts off as very much like, well, he's going to squib it down there, and they're going to try a couple of laterals, and they've tried another one, and they're still in trouble. Oh! And then they make one lateral that kind of springs the whole play loose. And he kind of goes, oh, the ball's still alive as they get it to midfield. And then you can just, his emotions start to go from, oh, we're going to lose this game. It's just this sort of like last second, like miracle attempt to just try to do anything, to wait, hold on a second. Something's happening here. And then he's getting really excited. And then it's, oh, and the band is on the field and they're going to score a touchdown. And, and then there's like about 20. This a lot of times in the replays of the call, they cut out about 20 to 30 seconds directly after the touchdown is scored because the referees don't actually signal touchdown right away. There were a bunch of flags that were thrown on the play. And so Joe Starkey has to kind of come back down from the high of calling the play to sort of explain, like, well, we have to see what's going on. There could have been a lateral that was forward. There could have been a penalty against Cal. If so, Cal's going to lose the game. And then the referee signaled touchdown, and that's when he goes into, oh my God, the Bears! The Bears have won the most thrilling, heart-rending, unbelievable game in college football history. And just takes it from having come back down to all of a sudden going from a 10 to a 5 to like a 30. And it's just this roller coaster of emotions within the call of the play. And no one will ever get to call a football play that happens like that ever again. And so it was a once in a lifetime opportunity for an announcer to say something.
Yeah.
And you go back and listen to it, and it's just raw emotion, and it's fantastic.
Do you think that had so the Kirk Gibson call had just a pastoral aspect? I felt like I was hearing the music from The Natural.
Sure.
Even though it wasn't there, it felt like it was cinematic, but also something even greater than cinema. It almost seemed like everything that baseball is, that hockey, football, aren't, was in that call. That the fans, just the green of the grass, the cheering, the space of the stadium, all that stuff was in there. The slowness that baseball can have, that some people have problems with, was a positive aspect of that. But it sounds like a hyperkinetic thing you're describing. It's very different what you're describing.
Yeah, and I think that's an element of maybe football versus baseball.
Yeah.
Like I think that's what you're getting at a little bit.
Uh-huh.
I mean, football is such a more of a driving and kind of like moving sort of excitement sort of sport versus baseball, which kind of moves at its own pace. It's a lot of moments of boredom punctuated by these incredibly amazing things that can happen. And the fact that both of them, that's one of the things that all of these calls are going to have, is that, except for Michael's, because he's making up ones that are fake, but all of the ones that I have are going to be end of game calls, because you're building up. I mean, sportscasting is essentially telling the story of the game, and you're building up to this conclusion, and you don't know what the conclusion is going to be as you're telling the story. And so, as a sportscaster, your job is to try and find a way to bring everything that you've been calling for the last 3 hours to a satisfying conclusion, regardless of what the outcome of the game, whether it's a blowout or it's some like fantastic finish. And you have to find a way to be able to raise what you do to match the heights that the game itself is undertaking.
Yeah.
It's not good when at the end of the game the announcer's like, "Welp." Okie dokie. Alrighty then. Okie do. So, watch Sliders on Fox. That's always the most disappointing thing, is when they have to get some last weird plug-in for whatever branded show that is like, now enjoy La Brea. Ah, come on.
The Preparation H, play the game. Let's see. Okay, Winfield, your third.
Oh, sure. My fourth and
sorry.
final
Sorry.
super dumb one. Oh God, Richard was so eloquent about building up the importance of the call, but mine is Jim Ross screaming at the top of his head, "By God, they've killed him! They've broken him in half!" with the Undertaker versus Mankind in the Hell in the Cell match at 1998's King of the Ring tournament. And listen, I understand that it's all scripted. My last two choices have been scripted. I don't know how much is written down for these announcers when they do a wrestling match. I understand there's probably some beats that they've got to get to, but when you see this 300-pound man get thrown off the top of a 20-foot cage through
Oh,
a
geez.
table, I seem to feel like his reaction was somewhat sincere. Not that they actually think that he killed the man, but just that the he's broken in half. I think that there is an intensity in which that sort of dialogue is delivered that I think helps sell the story of like wrestling to the audience, at least to the people watching at home. And I think that's what all sportscasters are doing, whether it's fake sports or whatever. They're telling the story. And in this instance, it was this man getting utterly throttled
Mm-hmm.
and just, you know, putting his body through a table, falling 15 feet, however high it was,
20 feet. Yeah.
Just ridiculous. You know, a tooth went from his mouth through his nose. This
Oh,
guy
God.
probably, Mankind got really, really beat up doing all this stupid shit.
Yeah.
And
Jim Ross has said, Michael, by the way, not to jump in, but that he didn't like knowing what was going to be happening in a match.
Mm.
So your point is 100% valid, that he did not know that Mankind was going to go off the top of this cage and through a table and all of the other stuff that happened during the match when he got slammed through the cage later on in the match to the mat and got knocked unconscious. Basically, he didn't know any of that was going to be happening.
that's one of those strange things that I liked about this match. I mean, not just the brutality, but this is like their first big stunt was this big fall off the cage, and then they kind of came back somehow to do more stuff. They wheeled him out on like a stretcher later, and then like he got off the stretcher and came running back. Like it was just this weird sense of like how much punishment can this guy suffer through, this guy that's hobbling. He's like Kirk Gibbs. He's like Kirk Gibson. Boy, Vin Scully calling a wrestling match would be fun. He just lets
And
the side,
he
just lets the
goes
side-
through the table.
Farmer John sausages are always good in a moment like this. It takes a spinning pile driver to really. Now he's in an armbar. But I don't know. Like I said, whether how much is known beforehand or not in one of these matches, seeing someone bad call a wrestling match and boring really affects the overall outcome. And it's the same thing when you're watching a baseball game or a basketball game or whatever. If something just feels off, it's just not as interesting. These men and women that do this now are just like, the good ones really stand out and the bad ones really fall away, and the mediocre ones just kind of sit there and really kind of affect your enjoyment of a game or match or whatever.
Mm-hmm. All right, the last one.
Last choice. Final round. 2 outs. Top of the ninth. My last choice, I realized that I had picked all 80s ones for my first 3, which I guess makes sense. You're sort of naturally tied to the calls that you remember growing up, especially as a kid. So I wanted to pick one a little bit outside of my age range for my last one. So I'm going with Chick Anderson and his call of the 1973 Belmont Stakes as won by Secretariat by 31 lengths over the field. One of the most probably the most amazing horse race in history. Secretariat going for a triple crown, which hadn't been accomplished in something like 30 years. And just demolishes the field. I mean, 31. Nobody wins by 31 lengths. He set a world record for the length that I think is still held to this day. It was to the point where on the on the broadcast on CBS, they had to go to a secondary camera while Secretariat was coming down the front stretch, just to be able to see the other horses. They were so far away.
Oh wow.
The main camera shot, you could not see any other horse because he was so far ahead of everyone else. And Chick Anderson's call is just this combination of Chick Anderson was this kind of classic, horse racing play-by-play track announcer type guy. And the race starts off as essentially a 2-horse race between Secretariat and this horse called Sham. And then Secretariat starts going ahead by 2 lengths and then 4 lengths. And Chick Anderson is just sort of calling this, and you can tell he's just getting more and more incredulous as Secretariat is pulling out to this impossible lead. And at one point, Chick Anderson describes Secretariat as moving like a tremendous machine, which I think is probably my favorite turn of phrase I've ever heard in a sports broadcast. I think for something that was just to be able to, off the top of your head, while watching this historic event, to be able to come up with a turn of phrase like that is just remarkable.
Yeah.
And I think horse racing guys have a lot of, they have to, most of the time during the race, they've got to call, this horse is in the lead, 2 links back to this, 3 links back to this horse is in 5th. And it's a lot of sort of just, it's a horse racing call. It's just da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. And this is one of the rare instances where, because it was so dominant and it was so unbelievable, that he got to call it in a way that he otherwise would never get to call a race.
Oh.
And he rose to the occasion.
Yeah. Because it's such a dramatic lead. There's no question about. Yeah.
There was no question about, no one cared about who was in second place. You couldn't see second place.
Now, was this the one where George Foreman comes out and punches Secretariat, and they go, "Secretariat's down."
Yes. George Foreman playing Mongo, dressed up as Mongo from Blazing Saddles, comes out, punches out Secretariat.
I believe Secretariat also stopped to take a nap in the middle of the race.
Yeah, sired a couple of foals, and then finished the race.
That deserves a comeuppance. That's kind of
speaking of last week, yeah.
Arrogance. God, Mongo a pawn in Game of Life. Was that Mongo just a pawn in Game of Life? Okay, awesome. All right, so let's pick some. I am not a good sports announcer caller, so
sports guy,
voice mouth person. This will have no flair. Let's go Kirk Gibson. Because why not? And then I didn't know that about Secretariat, so that was kind of cool. I could feel it. I could feel the fall when you're talking about Jim Ross. Is it Hell in a Cell? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
And let's also go with Miracle on Ice, because those crazy college kids. Gotta love them.
Well done.
Okay. This has been the Mount Rushmore of sports calls. I'm always Jeff.
I'm Richard.
I'm Michael.
I'm still Jeff.